Welcome back, my rogues. Today's question is, when is it acceptable, if ever, to disobey the law? Hope you enjoy, and check me out on Instagram. When following the law would result in grave immediate danger. According to MLK Emerson and Thoreau, when the laws are unjust or suppress the dignity of man, then they must be disobeyed. My great-grandparents grew up in Nazi Germany. Our family was heavily against the Third Reich. They assisted resistance fighters near the French border, and over half of our family was executed. Because it was against the law, my grandfather said that his dad always said there are no laws when it means saving a life. EDIT. Wow, this got a lot more attention than I thought. For those of you wondering what happened to them, they escaped Germany through the French resistance near Baden-Baden as payment for helping them. Since they knew it wouldn't be long before they were murdered for treason. The Germans were onto the whole family, the reason most were executed. And they skipped town knowing the rest of their family was more than likely fucked. They stayed in England under watch for about 2 months and then immigrated to the States. Both of them died peacefully in the early 1990s. To save someone from death or injury. When the law is unjust. 1. When the law is inefficient and harmless, e.g. jaywalking in an empty street. 2. When the law infringes on the rights of a group based on a trait they cannot change, e.g. institutionalized racism. 3. When the law is being abused in order to take advantage of those unable to fight it. A mild example: a police officer repeatedly ticketing someone for a parking violation they cannot fix quickly enough to avoid more tickets. More seriously, gerrymandering and voter intimidation. 4. When the law means immediate physical harm to one's person. In a given situation, things like internet piracy fall under 1 and 3. Rules about minimum sentencing for petty crimes fall under 2 and 3 in the case of the U.S. private prison system. Tax loopholes are the first example of 3 that came to mind, in that the abuse is from intentionally writing a law so that there exists a loophole, and no one except legislators can fight it, most of whom simply don't disobedience. Then, isn't necessarily as simple as flouting the law, but actively working to correct flaws in legislation and shift the balance of power away from points of concentration of excessive wealth and influence. Jaywalking is more acceptable than ever right now to maintain social distancing. If upholding the law means upholding an authoritarian regime. Whenever it is a law that I don't like. Technically not disobedience to law, but the German constitution calls upon IZS citizens to oppose the government if they try to undo the constitution, and thus the very basis that grants any form of personal rights within the country. Medical emergencies. I have 2 stories. One wife went into labor. We lived about 15 minutes from the hospital. The contractions were so quick and hard that she broke 2 of my fingers squeezing them. I hit 80 miles per hour in town, ran 2 stoplights, and made an illegal turn to get her there just in time for our daughter to be born with the umbilical cord wrapped around her throat. Doctor said she would have died if we hadn't made it in time. She's now 11.2. Went shopping with my mum. She had a heart attack. Sped to the nearest hospital while on the phone with 911. Ran several lights and hit about 65 miles per hour in town. Pulled into the ambulance bay to the waiting medical staff. She survived. Be gay, do crime. Morality and the law aren't interchangeable and often oppose one another. In 1940s Germany, aiding a Jew was a death penalty crime. In 1950s American blacks using water fountains were criminals. Hell, even in America today I can't discriminate against a Nazi with a swastika on his forehead that can refuse service to a gay person. Disobey any unjust law. It's your duty. Source: Thomas Jefferson. When the law is fucking stupid and breaking it doesn't hurt someone else or infringe on their rights. E.g., smoking a bowl in a state where pot is illegal. If you have a lot of money, whenever it conveniences you. In my eyes, there are times when it's infinitely more reasonable to break a law than to follow it. Speeding to get to hospital, breaking into residents to help, feeding the homeless. I am free, no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I tolerate them. If I find them too obnoxious, I break them. Robert Heinlein. When there are no cars, and you need to cross the street to help escaped slaves flee to the north. Anytime. The law is not morality. If you ask yourself whether something is legal instead of whether it's right, then you're already making a mistake. Slavery was legal. The Holocaust was legal, at least according to Germany. America's war crimes are legal according to America. There are concentration camps filled with innocent refugees and police who brutally murder civilians. There are crimes with exorbitant fines that mean they're legal for the rich and powerful. The law is a piece of paper. Stop pretending like it fucking matters. Nothing that's important to a decent society needs to be made into a law because people will already follow that social contract without threatening to punish them with state violence. Piracy. When you already own a form of the product, or it is at the EOL, your parents bought you a VHS set of Star Wars episodes IV, V, and VI. You still own the set, but due to there being a lack of VHS players, I find it perfectly reasonable if you pirate the movies and watch them. You essentially own a license for the product. In my mind, what I mean when a product is EOL is when the purchase would no longer benefit the creator-owner. The Sims Complete Collection, for example. From what I have seen, you cannot purchase this game digitally anywhere, and there are barely any physical copies that are overpriced and still wouldn't give EA or Maxis any of the profits. When you want some dank. Over the past year, there have been a number of headline-grabbing legal changes in the US, such as the legalization of marijuana in CO and WA, as well as the legalization of same-sex marriage in a growing number of US states, as a majority of people in these states apparently favor these changes. Advocates for the US democratic process cite these legal victories as examples of how the system can provide real freedoms to those who engage with it through lawful means. And it's true, the bills did pass. What's often overlooked, however, is that these legal victories would probably not have been possible without the ability to break the law. The state of Minnesota, for instance, legalized same-sex marriage this year, but sodomy laws had effectively made homosexuality itself completely illegal in that state until 2001. Likewise, before the recent changes making marijuana legal for personal use in WA and CO, it was obviously not legal for personal use. Imagine if there were an alternate dystopian reality, where law enforcement was 100% effective, such that any potential law offenders knew they would be immediately identified, apprehended, and jailed. If perfect law enforcement had been a reality in MN, CO, and WA since their founding in the 1850s, it seems quite unlikely that these recent changes would have ever come to pass. How could people have decided that marijuana should be legal, if nobody had ever used it? How could states decide that same-sex marriage should be permitted, if nobody had ever seen or participated in a same-sex relationship? Moxie Marlinspike. Another editor replied, when following the law would result in grave immediate danger. And I concur wholeheartedly. If I'm on my road and I realize the log truck behind me has lost brake power coming down the hill, you'll head check several times at the stop sign, but if you think him coming to a dead stop for a 3 count before proceeding, you're nuts. If there's no car on a collision course, screw the stop sign and screw whatever cop might be watching. It is indeed better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. If a cop wants to issue me a citation or even arrest me for saving my own ass or the life of someone else at the expense of a law to which my breaking caused no real harm beyond the affront to authority, he'll go along and fight it in court at some later time. I view laws as basic guidelines, and often very good ones. People who view them as incontrovertible black and white things, I'm not sure they're right. Sometimes the right thing to do is make the right decision in the moment, even if it smashes a couple laws along the way. Nice try, FBI. When following the law endangers you or other people, when the law itself is unjust, immoral, or outlandish. When the law is wrong. Whenever it doesn't hurt anyone. When the law is beginning to cross the line from protection to control, it is okay in my opinion to disobey. As long as my actions are not affecting anyone besides myself negatively, there should be no problem. Unless another person's safety requires that my basic human rights be violated. When the laws are unjust. Highly recommend reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. Whenever law is unethical, if it violates your rights in any way, shape or form, if it prevents you from consuming a substance, if it prevents you from owning what you mixed your labor with, if it prevents you from owning property, or if it denies you the right to autonomy or self-defense. I was told from a young age it's only illegal if you get caught. If you like smoking weed. When weed is illegal in your state. I will accept any rules that you feel necessary to your freedom. I am free, no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I tolerate them. If I find them too obnoxious, I break them. I am free because I know that I alone am morally responsible for everything I do. Robert A. Heinlein. The moon is a harsh mistress. Whenever the cops aren't looking, no cops. Back road, let's speed. Semi-truck crashed into a street sign. It's broken. New decoration. Want a beer and you're 14? Don't get caught. Honestly, do what you want. When you're a member of the United States Senate. If they try and take something you legally own. The purge. To save lives. Apparently when you don't want to wear a face mask into a place that legally requires you to. When someone's life is in danger. When your life or someone else's life is in danger. If the laws are immoral. When the law requires something immoral of you, or when your unique circumstances were not considered when writing the law and applying the law to. Those circumstances would oppose the intent of the law. When you're doing the morally right thing. Just because something is legal does not make it right. Smoking weed. Smoking weed. When the law is unethical, it's your duty to disobey it.
Hope you liked this video. Stay frosty, my rebels.